So you see, the other day I was thinking, why is it that there's so many people who have this temporary goal that enters their mind? Like maybe I should start memorizing Quran. Maybe I should stay consistent with this and one day see how far I can take it. But so many people actually quit before they even reach their goal. And it actually had me thinking about how I personally started memorizing Quran and how I came really close to actually stopping when I saw how difficult it got until one thing really clicked. So you see, a few years ago, there was actually this idea that started gaining popularity online. It's called the 100-hour rule. And essentially what it means is that if you just dedicate 100 hours to a particular skill, you already enter yourself into like the top 10 to 20% of people at that skill, and you actually get pretty good at it. And I remember hearing about this a while ago, but I thought it was only for industries like, if you're trying to learn how to code, or if you're trying to learn like a technical skill, or you're trying to learn like a language or something like that. But it wasn't until I started memorizing Quran where I felt this is the same exact thing that clicked here. And you see, when I started memorizing Quran, I literally started from ground zero, not even knowing how to read Arabic. And that's why I felt like such a burden on me. And there was so many times at the beginning of this journey where I thought to myself, maybe I should just stop now. This seems like it's gonna be way too hard. Maybe I got into the wrong thing. Maybe I'm not built for this. But now that I look back on it, I can kind of remember that like every juz I memorized, every few pages I memorized, it started just getting easier and easier and easier until alhamdulillah now I'm the point where now that I have 10 juz memorized, it feels way easier now to memorize a page or to even revise than it did at the beginning. And it's because once you do more than a certain amount of hours, particularly dedicating to the skill, it gets way easier than it once was in the beginning. See, this seems like obvious and like totally common sense, but unfortunately, a lot of people don't realize this. And it's why so many people have that desire. You may have heard them. Oh, I want to, start memorizing Quran this year. I want to get more, maybe into whatever personal goal it is. But they end up kicking it within just a few weeks because they kicked it when it was the hardest it was going to be. When I look back at the past year or so, I really see like my hifz journey so far, where it started super hard, just pushing like a ball up the mountain, and then slowly it just stabilizes, and now it's getting easier and easier and easier. And this really goes for every goal. So you should be the person who, that first few weeks, if you just stick with it, realize in your head it's only gonna get way easier after that. Those are the times where I started off in this hip journey, and I could vividly remember where it took me 2 hours to memorize one page in like the 29th or 30th juz, which are like the easiest juz. Now that I'm looking back at it, I actually don't even know how I stayed consistent with that for the first few weeks, but it was really just something where it started off super hard. Alhamdulillah, I just managed to stay somewhat consistent with it. And then over time, it gets way easier. And this isn't just my experience. I've heard this from so many people I've talked to in our school community who've said the same thing, that the first few juz obviously was really hard. But once you get after that, it not only just becomes like a habit into your life, so it's like emotionally easier, but it's actually like even just the technical part of memorizing gets way easier because your brain is used to it. It just becomes normal to you. What once took me like 2 hours to memorize now literally takes me maybe like 30 minutes to memorize. And once you have that kind of like realization, it makes you like want to keep going because you realize it's only going to get easier and easier. And that right now is the hardest point of it. And also, if you're someone who's using those excuses like, oh, I can't start my memorization now, or I can't go intense on my memorization now because of school or work, whatever excuse you might be making, that's actually the best time to start, because if you can prove yourself that you can memorize now during a busy period of your life, it means that that excuse is no longer valid for the rest of your entire life. Even years from now, like if that thought enters your mind again, you'll be able to say, no, that's not true, because I actually memorized once, even in the past when I had this schedule. And you see, another reason as to why so many people eventually stop memorizing the Quran is because as soon as things got difficult in their personal lives, whether it's work or school, they immediately kicked the habit, and they never really even made it like a seamless habit to begin with. Something like memorizing the Quran is going to take hundreds and hundreds of days. So the real trick to it is to making sure that you're consistent with it, even if it's a small amount. You see, last year when I was working in school and juggling a ton of things, I remember I did like deep research online from people like Sheikh Dosari to the person online, to the blog posts. How can you memorize quicker? How can you memorize more effectively? And everywhere I looked, it just kept pointing me in the same direction, which was consistency. And I know that's like the boring answer, but it's really the truth. Even if it's a small amount, if you can just make sure you're doing it daily, it eventually compounds into something way bigger than you might have thought. So this is why, on top of just forcing yourself to pass that 100-hour mark, you didn't make sure and always like kind of like test your life, check in on your life. Is the Quran like a seamless habit in my day-to-day? Or is it just something that like I do sometimes when I'm free and then sometimes I fall off? Because ideally, you'd want it to be a consistent habit day in, day out. The same way you get up at the same time, the same way you brush your teeth at the same time, you want to actually have it so you memorize, revise Quran at the same time, even if it's for a small amount, because that's how you actually make way more progress than someone who just memorizes a big portion on one day, but then stops for a few days and then it goes again, memorizes a big portion. You'd actually be surprised, even if you were just memorizing 10 minutes a day, but you did it so consistently, at the end of the month, the end of a few months, you'd look back and realize, wow, I made it like way further than I thought I could have. And you see, the reason why this is so important, because let's say you were to just like stop memorizing temporarily when life got hard, what essentially would happen is you'd probably forget so much of what you memorized and then have to go back and revise it. And just that emotional pain of forgetting makes you not even want to like partake in the journey anymore at all. This actually happened to me recently when things got intense at work, and I went like a full week without memorizing or revising anything. And I noticed myself, like once I came back to it, that I had to like restart and go back like essentially 2 weeks of where I started from. And it felt so bad that it kind of brings those thoughts like, oh, should I even keep going? Was this even worth it? So don't overlook like a small dip in your hip journey, because it actually carries a lot of emotional weight. And you might think to yourself, maybe I should just stop here. You see, in the beginning, it might seem like memorizing Quran is like actually kind of like a skill or like a difficult thing that you need to learn tajweed, or you need to learn how to read Arabic. but that only takes like a few weeks. The real part of it is actually a behavior change. After a certain amount of time, most people can memorize a page of Quran like fairly quickly. The real thing that comes is like, are you actually like behaving right? Are you staying consistent with it? Are you showing up every day? Or are you kind of just getting undisciplined with things? Are you getting lazy? And are you just like at risk of falling off? If you're someone who's really trying to prevent that, then inshallah, one of the main ways you can do that is having some accountability, having like other people and even teachers that you can come to, revise Quran to week after week. And if you want that, inshallah, click the link in the description. That's actually our Quran program where we revise every single weekend and you can present what you memorize, get corrected, and also get access to courses and resources on how to make this hib journey more efficient and smoother. But inshallah, this video is a benefit. Assalamu alaikum.